Strap yourselves in. You're listening to the Powell Movement.
Welcome to the Powell Movement. I'm your host, Mike Powell, and I'm back from the Outdoor Retailer Show, and I brought home a gift that I can share with everyone I come in contact with in Seattle, the trade show sickness. So if you see me, stay far away, or you'll be having more Powell Movements than you've had in a while. Anyways, enough about my health. We have an amazing guest this week who knows all about health issues, injuries, personal drama, and podiums. In fact, 22-year-old Olympian Torin Yater-Wallace has had the most difficult road to success of anyone who's been on the podcast. It's really a roller coaster of a story, and Torin shares a lot. Before we get into the podcast, I want to ask you to subscribe to me on Instagram at The Powell Movement, share my posts on social media, and reach out to me with any feedback or concerns. My email address is mike@thepowellmovement.com. Finally, I need to thank my sponsors. They are evo.com, Rescue Water, 10 Barrel Brewery, the Summit at Snoqualmie, and Unofficial Networks. Please support them and use the codes offered in the ads when you do, as it makes them happy with me. Now, let's chat with Torin Yater-Wallace. It's been a huge week for you.
Yeah, it's
Eating some food?
Yeah, I'm just finally getting lunch right now. It's been a long ass day.
What'd you do today? Today would be the calm after the storm.
We flew in from Mammoth last night and we were canceled. Our Denver to Aspen flight was canceled. Alex, Blunk, and myself. And then last minute we got on a flight to Vail, and then we got a taxi home. But then our bags came into Aspen today, and then went and registered for X at Buttermilk here for X Games. And then I just got off another interview right now and finally got lunch.
Nothing's easy for you. You can't even get home from Mammoth and make it easy.
Yeah, definitely some tough times, but also that's kind of just inherent by flying in and out of Aspen. It's always a gamble.
And it saves a big drive, which I'm sure is nice.
Yeah.
The weekend had to be huge. I guess in an athlete's head, you're going into the weekend and there's a chance you're going to make the Olympic team. There's a chance you're not. And it's a 50-50 shot.
Yeah, it really was the deciding factor of if I was going to make the Olympic team or not. It's been quite the ride this year. It's been an interesting season for me. I haven't had the best results I've had in previous seasons at the start, which has just been tough to deal with in general, but it's just been a lot of pressure. I was very thankful to have won the first Olympic qualifier last year in Mammoth, which ideally would set me up well to just get another podium and then be set this year. But the criteria was changed as opposed to last time's qualifying for the Olympics, whereas in 2013-14 leading into the Olympics there, it was you against the Americans. So say no Americans podiumed and you got a fourth. In that instance, you were the first in the American field. You got first place points. And this year, it was a battle of you against the competition. And that made it, just quite difficult, as everybody's telling you, you just have to podium. You know, if you got fourth and no other Americans were on the podium, you wouldn't get first place points. You just have a fourth. So every event you were just battling to get a podium, and it ended up turning into a lot of pressure for me, as, you know, every single person whispering in my ear is just go get a podium. You have to podium here and you're fine. You'll make it, right? And compared to events that I've had success in the past, it's a lot more of, you know, just me going into the event, riding for myself and trying to do my best, not trying to get podiums. I'm always trying to land on the podium and do well, but it's a sense of wanting to and just wanting to ski my best for myself as opposed to having to. So that made it quite difficult, and I've been dealing with an ongoing foot injury for the past year and a half. It was hard this year. I ended up with a fourth and a fifth, so I was right outside of the podium twice. And then Aspen didn't go so well. I was in a lot of pain with my foot. It's a joint in the inside of my foot, the subtalar joint, and I had it injected the week before, and then really snowy qualifying day, and I didn't land my first run very well. 2-hour wait until our second runs because of fog, and then it was just, really bad conditions and didn't make the finals. So yeah, pressure was on for this weekend, and I just wanted to do my best, and qualifying day was great, and then finals night The half pipe was really difficult to ride. The right wall was insanely oververt. I fell on my left 10 both the first and second run, and then I ended up going to the little easier run, doing just a left 7 there, and just barely holding on the whole run, quite frankly. I was not extremely proud of my skiing, but I was proud of myself, I guess, mentally of overcoming that and thankfully landing that third run. And shout out to the judges, got me on third place. Very thankful.
If that doesn't happen, you're in the discretionary pool of riders, and the last Olympics, you got that discretionary spot, so you really didn't have to worry about the qualifiers as much, and that was because of injury, which we'll talk about later. But going into this year, you looked like a shoo-in because you had that first place last year. You took it until the final run that you could possibly have to qualify for the Olympics to do it. It's a tribute to you actually being smart and saying, hey, I'm going to pull back on that 10, I'm going to make it a 7 and make sure I land it so I can get on this team, and it all worked out for you.
Yeah, I don't know. It was a really difficult night. And there was a lot of scenarios that would have made things really interesting as far as the team being chosen. Blanc had a second and a third already this year, so he met the objective criteria. Dave was already set. Alex was pretty set as well with a first and a second, but had Gus have won and I got second in Mammoth, then Dave would have had 2 first. And Alex, Gus, and myself would have had first and seconds. And then they would go to your next result to battle between each other. And then it would be between Blanc and somebody for coach's discretion. And there was all kinds of different scenarios where things could have been crazy. And, I'm just really thankful to have finally just gotten the podium I needed. It was a lot of pressure. And ultimately, I was already mentally ready for, if it didn't happen. There's so many other things in this industry that I want to do that not going to the Olympics would not have been the end of the world. But I mean, with all the hype and everything and sponsors that are expecting you to, it's just a relief to just have made the team and to just kind of be able to have the full experience again. It was a really special opportunity last time.
It's got to feel good that you're not put in that situation where it's you and some of your best friends that people are picking, he lives, no. Picking that last spot and letting you in. So it's nice to do it on your own terms.
Most definitely. I think as far as qualifying this year, I really just wanted to qualify in the normal first 3 that automatically go and just not be in the position of 4th as I was last time.
Yeah, it makes everything better. But what's going on with your foot? I mean, you say you've got an injury to the joint. Is it something where if you put on a ski boot, it hurts right away? Are you always in pain? Do you feel it right now?
It's honestly pretty complicated. It's an injury to my subtalar joint in the inside of my foot that I've been dealing with for 3 years. And the wrong movements send the most aggressive shooting nerve pain throughout my foot, the sharpest pain I could ever imagine. And it's with positions of pulling my leg from my foot, too much pressure on the top of my arch, landing weird. In the past 2 seasons, I've had it injected in the fall with a steroid just to get through the year because, I really don't know the fix for it at this point. Even the doctors at the U.S. team, we just don't really know how to get me in permanent relief. And I hadn't done that this year, and it just started to fire up really bad earlier this year. It kind of makes my heel hurt really bad too, which I've literally been dealing with a bruised heel for a year and a half now. And in Korea last year at the test event, I tore my plantar fascia, the ligament that goes from your heel all the way to all your toes and the bottom of your foot. So my right foot is just relentlessly, it's always something that's in pain. And last year was difficult with it already. I bruised my heel really bad at X Games last year because the pipe was really bad. The skier's right wall was really undervert. And it was -5 out, and they couldn't really do much with the cutter because the walls were so icy. So you were dropping into X Games last year pretty much with a death sentence. You knew you were about to land on the deck. And I was trying to work with a left double 12 too, which I basically just learned. Right where the pipe was at its most undervert, landed on the deck, bruised my heel really bad, along with a lot of other people. Kevin had a really, really horrible deck there. From there, I could barely walk. And went to Mammoth for the qualifier, got my foot injected and numbed up to be able to ride the event. which sucked. That was one of the most painful things I've ever done in my life, having a big numbing needle going into the side of my heel.
Oh.
And was able to ride that event and, thankfully won. And then it wore off and my heel was even worse because I was putting covers over the pain, numbing it for a bit and inevitably skiing on an injury. So then I still couldn't walk. I was limping, pretty much had crutches. I was using a ski pole for a bit and went to Korea. Did the same thing, had my foot numb to even ride that event. Ended up winning there too, which was just mind-blowing. But then also landed really flat and just tore my whole foot apart on the bottom. So it's pretty much never ending, and I just try and do the best for my foot.
Do you think about the future at all, or is it just like shoot it up and we're going to get through it now and what happens later happens later?
I think about the future a lot, honestly. I don't like to go with that route of doing something to get through the current situation. Obviously, for those two events, it was quite important, and this year is another important time. But I mean, honestly, I want to just take one of the summers and just, go full relief, no skiing, and just get my body on point because there's life after skiing. And I mean, there's even just tons more skiing to be done in the future. And I want to be able to walk,
Totally. You've got this window that you should maximize your time. And for you, having to deal with the pain is part of that. So you take the shots to do it. It's just eventually you need to heal up.
Yeah, most definitely. And it's frustrating because I have to do this for these contests, but contests are like not the most enjoyable part of skiing to me, obviously. I think for anybody skiing outside a contest, you're going to have more fun and just enjoy everything. And I want to be able to be pain-free to just go ski on any given day and work hard and put video parts together. And doing all this for contests is quite frustrating. And, right now we're in a situation where I got to do the most for it and get through. Currently, as I'm sitting today, it's not feeling too bad. I've been doing everything I can with our physical therapist at the U.S. team to just get the most relief possible and have me pain-free in my ski boots.
Contests, while they might not be your favorite part, I would think are the biggest part of providing an income because, like you said, there's a lot of sponsors that expected you to be in the Olympics because you have that huge spotlight on you for that 2 days every 4 years. And it's a big deal in terms of marketing dollars to these brands, and they believe in you and your image, and they want the world to see it. So you've got to do them.
At this point, still in my younger years, in my eyes, I've always had the plan of making a name for myself within contests and, really getting these good partnerships with companies that believe in me, and then really kind of just translating that into the future of what I see my career as, just kind of selectively choosing the special events I like to go to, while at the same time putting most of my work and dedication into making video parts. I don't want to just go down as a halfpipe skier, nor have I ever just wanted to be, in anybody's eyes, the best halfpipe skier to ever live. That's really lame to me. To me, I want to be like the most well-rounded skier I can and just be able to do everything. And that's what I aspire to do. So I'm glad I've been able to kind of make the name for myself in halfpipe skiing, but by no means is that all I see in my career.
The blueprint is there. There's so many pros that have gone the contest route to establish their name and then gone and skied powder the rest of their lives. Not too many of them come out of the halfpipe, though. I'm trying to think in my brain of the one pipe skier that came out and had video parts every year that you thought about, because there was a lot of slopestyle guys that left that scene and went to go ski POW. Are there any pipe guys that come out with sections every year?
I mean, obviously, in the older days of things, I feel like Tanner and Simon were putting out video parts, quite frankly, every year while riding pipe, and that's how it should be in my eyes. But, in this day and age, there's almost nobody. I mean, I try and do the best I can and definitely don't have a segment every year. And that's also just a timing thing, not necessarily just having contests, but I'm not the best at planning, and you definitely need some money to spend to plan to get around to these locations and make a good part.
Yep.
You don't have to have the budget, you can go out of pocket, but when you have companies supporting you, it makes sense to get some budget to make something. So that's actually been my biggest setback the whole time, is honestly my own self. I'd like to think that I've tried to do my best filming with Level 1 for like 3 years, not always big segments, but did a turkey one there, and obviously a bunch of the park shoots, but that almost doesn't even count as anything in a segment, which I'd done that with Matchstick and tried to do a segment with Superproof, but that was like the worst snow year we've had ever. So I only got like 2 backcountry shots and then just a bunch of park shoot shots. But I was really pleased to put out the short film season edit I did with Vital a few years ago. I was really hyped on that. Again, a lot of park riding, but just being able to put out content and not be targeted as just a half-pipe skier. I think that's like the most boring thing I could possibly be. And honestly, in snowboarding is a place where I've seen some of the best half-pipe riders go in the books as legends, translating it over to video parts and just riding for years. I mean, Terrier is a great example. He was, at the forefront of half-pipe riding and its roots, and everybody knows Terrier's name.
Snowboarding takes care of their legends, though. Skiing won't. That's a big difference as well.
Yep.
This has been a long intro, so I'm going to jump into some sponsors really quick. And the first one is Evo. And Evo is way more than the best ski, snowboard, surf, bike, skate, and clothing website in the country. They also have retail locations in Denver, Seattle, and Portland, and they carry the best brands and only hire the most knowledgeable and approachable people to make your shopping experience great. On the web front, Evo offers a low price guarantee, free shipping on orders over $50, and a no-hassle return policy. For listening to the show, they're going to give you 10% off your entire order. When you check out, use the code capital TPM, the number 10, it's all one word, and you'll get 10% off that order. But wait, there's more. Evo prides itself on its core values of creating a gathering place with a cause. Evo's an art gallery, a movie venue, a travel base, and they have the goal of making a difference in the world. So when you shop at Evo, you're not just supporting a great storefront, you are also supporting some amazing nonprofits. My next sponsor is Rescue Water, and they are proactive recovery. And if you don't know what that means, well, I want you to try something for me. Next time you hit the mountain, gym, skate park, or practice, skip the sports drink and drink a cold Rescue Water. There's no gimmicks here. It's science and it works. And you'll notice how much more hydrated and better you feel compared to your normal post-exercise drink of choice. The game changer for me is that it works great after a big night. Trust me, drink one before bed and you're good to go in the morning. And we are making it easier than ever to try Rescue Water. Head on over to rescuewater.com, order a 12-pack, enter the code RESQUEWATERTPM, that's RESQ Water TPM, one word, and get a 20% discount. Rescue Water is also available on Amazon and Amazon Prime. Those are my sponsors right there, so we'll get back into it. And thinking of you as a well-rounded skier, you've had video parts, like you said, you've crushed it in the pipe, and you were pretty much born into this. I mean, you were born and raised in Basalt, Colorado?
Yeah.
You're about an hour outside of Aspen or 40 minutes outside of Aspen?
Only like 20 minutes to the mountain.
So that's not bad. And when you are just a little kid, what are your parents doing to make money? Because Aspen is the most expensive place you could possibly live in the entire world.
Yeah, Aspen is, it's insane. I've always went to school up Valley and ski club and all that in Aspen, but always lived in Basalt where it's a little bit more affordable. But when I was really young, my mom didn't really work. She had a t-shirt business actually when she first moved to the Aspen Valley, and that's what she did for a while. And then my parents got married and stuff, and when they met here, and anyway, my dad started a wine importing and exporting company. He just sold fine, rare wines all around the world. And we were doing pretty decent as a kid. But my dad had some issues with not getting the orders on a bunch of people's wine to them on time, and was investigated by the federal government. And inevitably, he was indicted with multiple charges and was in and out of prison and on house arrest and all kinds of stuff throughout pretty much the years of me being in third grade to 2015. He was home for like multiple different extents, but then he'd be sent back sometimes for like probation violations of the pettiest things, like 5 minutes late to like a probation meeting and stuff like that. And it was pretty much never ending. So then we were absolutely broke. Moved houses like freaking 20 times as a kid.
So wait, first, when your dad gets arrested, do they actually take him from your house? Are you there to see that?
Yeah. My sister and I and my mom were at home. We were getting ready to go to school. And then the FBI just showed up in all their black cars. We were real young, and they just took my dad right there.
Do you even know what's going on?
No, I had no clue at the time. I was so young. Like, I mean, all I knew was my dad was selling wine and stuff. And then, I mean, it took years to even grasp what really happened. It was harsh, it sucks as a kid when you deal with that kind of stuff. I had no clue what was going on, but.
Do kids make fun of you growing up for that kind of shit? Or are you cool enough based on your skiing where they don't?
I mean, I was so young, like, I don't even think my friends even knew what happened.
Not at 8, but I mean, if that's going on till you're 15, I mean, how does it affect you as a kid? Are you able to see him a lot? Because that's got to be frustrating.
It's honestly hard to remember all the different times, but throughout a lot of it, he was in Denver, so we'd go see him all the time. And I talked to my dad every day on the phone almost. Like every day that he had time to call and stuff, he'd be calling me. And yeah, it was weird at times, not in the sense of like friends making fun of you or things, but more in the sense of, friends come over and it's just your mom and not your dad there. And nobody ever asked really. And I was like pretty closed about it, honestly, until the past couple of years. Only my like close friends and my family and I would talk about it. But yeah, he'd be home at times. Like it was like a few years, and then he was out for a few years, and then house arrest for a few years. And then the last extent of it all, I had gone to WSI for my first time in Whistler when I was 16. And it was like actually one of the most memorable trips of my life. It was so fun. It was my first time in Whistler. I remember like halfway through, my coach, Alana, like had gotten the call from my mom that my dad was like going back to jail for some probation thing. And she like waited till the contest was over. Alana, my coach, did, to tell me, just obviously wanted to keep me mentally all good. But yeah, she was like, hey, like, your mom just called. Your dad is, he's, gone again. It sucked. And then that was when I was 16. And then when he finally got out after that extent was when I was 19, December of 2015.
Jeez, man. Your mom stood by his side the whole time and you guys are a family unit again?
Yeah. I mean, my mom's the strongest person ever, Throughout all the times as a kid when we were broke and just scraping by on food stamps and everything, trying to be a professional skier was a far-fetched dream in that situation,
Yeah.
Not the cheapest sport in the world, nor do I live in the cheapest valley in the world. So we're all living in like 1-bedroom apartments, just like sharing our space and living at friends' houses. And there was definitely a big chunk of time where my mom thought we were going to have to move and knew that would kill me because, she knew my dream and knew what I wanted to do. I mean, throughout it all, she helped me do everything and helped me basically just any possible way can make this aspiring dream of becoming a professional skier cheaper. She was so good at it. Everything from just trying to submit forms for all the different scholarships and the ski club and stuff. And she had her video camera out at all times, just filming me, and we'd send it into companies to try and get sponsorships so we could offset some of the cost of competitions and stuff. And then I remember like USASA Nationals, I had switched over to the open class where they pay if you win.
Okay.
And I don't know, I'm 12 or something. And I won halfpipe and slopestyle and made $2,000 or something. And that like immediately just went into rent for my parents. I mean, it was just everything, we were just scraping by. And it was a saving grace having skiing there in the long run. I'm so glad she stood by me through all of it because, inevitably, once things really started to pick up and, when I did my first X Games when I was 15 and got signed to Target and stuff, like financially, that legitimately saved my family's life. Every single dollar I was having come in was, immediately going straight to my family to help out and, obviously helping me get around the world to get to these events. But I mean, at the beginning, it was truly just supporting my entire family, just trying to help us scrape by.
It's a crazy idea that your mom's by herself, your dad's away, so he has no income coming in. Your mom has to do whatever she can to keep you guys going. You're not driving a race car, but you might as well be. It's a super expensive sport, so she's breaking her back to fuel your dream. And are you all hoping that this dream can come true and save the family? Is that the thought? Or is it, I want to provide him with the opportunity to achieve his dream?
I mean, it definitely wasn't anything about financially trying to become a professional skier to like keep us alive. It was a lot more my mom just being there for me to chase my dream. And I mean, inevitably, it just ended up working out where financially I could help my family out and help support them. And, with my sister going to college and everything, like, there's a lot of stuff to pay for outside of just skiing, but everyday living.
Life's expensive, man.
Yeah, no, and none of it was about like getting to this level so we could have money. My mom was just like, yeah, I mean, I know how bad you want to do this, so I'm going to help you do it. And whatever happens, happens. And it's crazy how quick life kind of just flips around in an instance like that. And I didn't even know what was going on, honestly. It was insane.
Well, your life has been flipped around like a pancake about 15 times, and we've only gotten into a couple of them so far. But you get into skiing at an early age. Anybody who's born into these resort towns do. At 7-ish, I think you joined the Aspen Valley Ski Club. Your mom's resourceful, get scholarships, gets you in there. When do you realize that you want to be a professional skier in this mix? Is it like when you're 10 years old, you see some videos, or how does it all come together in your head?
I don't know the exact time. I think if you ask anybody, it's hard to...
Not the moment, but is it like you're a sixth grader and you saw the X Games in person for the first time, you saw Tanner and you're like, I'm going to be that guy?
For me, I had the opportunity to watch X Games in person growing up in the Aspen Valley. I would literally like skip school every week during X Games to go see the pipe event and slope and everything. It was right there in front of me. Starting at 6 years old, I had the opportunity to go see this insane sport in first person and just be so inspired and hyped up at what they were doing. And along with that, Peter Olenek, being from the Aspen Valley, seeing him ski around and kind of being a superstar in the area. And even the guys that weren't here in the X Games at the time, but they were like high schoolers, but kind of getting big in the scene, like
Charlie Lassers of the world?
Yeah. Charlie Lasser, Matt Walker, Sam Ferguson. They were ATA, the Aspen Town Army, the kids we all looked up to. We had like a really good scene here of free skiing, along with having the biggest event in free skiing here at my home resort. It was everything around this area was just perfect for inspiration to become a free skier. So, I was, bored with skiing like any other kid who got into this sport, got into the freestyle club, did like moguls and aerials, get the foundation going, which I'm very happy I did. I'd like to say that I actually kind of know how to ski, not just know how to jump in the air and spin on the metal. And then, it really started to be a little more realistic, when you're like a little kid winning some of the little national stuff. You don't think that you're going to be like a superstar by any means, but you're like, oh, well, I'm doing all right at this. Let's keep chasing around. And I think that was a big thing for my mom, was like, oh, you actually like have some talent, you're not just talking about this like, oh, it could happen. She was like, all right, you're winning all these little events, you're going to nationals and winning. I think she had faith in me, and that was a big thing for her too, so it was probably more around 10 or 11 when I kind of started to realize like, all right, I'm doing well at some of this stuff. Like, let's keep climbing up the ranks. Let's sign up for Aspen Open and the Gatorade Free Flow Tour.
And that's like a big one for you, is that free flow tour.
That was the big kind of transition for me getting into the pro scene and pro events. Was
How old are you?
I was 14, or like the year I was 13, turned 14, the 2009-10 season. I signed up for the Free Flow Tour, the like amateur do tour at the time. And they had a few slope and pipe events throughout the state and around the country. And I went to Vail and did the Free Flow Tour there, and I got second. And you got the opportunity to go to the finals, which were at Mount Snow right after the do tour if you won one of the Free Flow Tours. So I had gotten second, and then they had one in Keystone, and I went to go to that event, but it was actually canceled, and they didn't do another one. So I ended up getting a spot to the finals in Mount Snow because I got second at the other Colorado stop.
So you were an asterisk.
Yeah, which was insanely surprising. I was like, oh, all right, wow. Well, yeah, I'll take the opportunity. So then I went out there with my mom, and I ended up winning the finals in Mount Snow, which if you won there, you got an invite to do tour the next year, which was just huge for me. And then with that, I had turned 15 that next December, the next year. So I was old enough to sign up for the Grand Prix. And I did that in Copper, and I made finals, and I got like ninth, I think. And then I did Dew Tour in Breck that year, and I got fifth. And I had just signed with Armada like a few months before that.
And that story's crazy too. They invite you on a recruiting trip. They're like, hey, you're going to come to New Zealand. We're going to ski. You're pretty much going to take all of our catalogs photos for us. We're going to see what kind of person you are. And if we think you're rad, you're going to be on the team.
Yeah, that's what we portrayed the video to be like. But
it was not that way.
I signed with them a few weeks before that trip for like a really, really small amount of money. But it was the first time anybody had actually offered me money. And I was skiing for Solomon at the time. I'd been on them for like 4 or 5 years.
Did the Solomon find you?
Jenny?
Yeah.
Yeah, at the time I didn't sign at all. I just got hooked up.
They were really good at getting people like you who no one had ever heard of and having all the young talent on their skis. And then everybody branched off and went other ways, it seemed like. But they had a ton of talent when you were there.
Oh, yeah. No, we had a sick squad with Solomon. It was super fun. I got hooked up with them when I was 10, and I went on a trip to Mount Hood, actually. That was like my first trip with a company. And for the young kids, we called it SGS. It was the Solomon Grom Squad. And on that trip to Oregon, I was there with Cody Ling, Lucas Walks, Walter Wood, and Hudson Knoll. Had the time of my life. It was so sick. And like Sammy and Simon and all the big dogs were there, and I was like so fired up, but I got really sunburned and only had Fritos to eat, so it kind of ruined Mount Hood for me for a little bit. Yeah, it was insane. And then going into Dew Tour was coming, where like I actually had the opportunity where I might be traveling around to some bigger events. I was like, damn, I can't afford this. I'm broke. Like, I need a couple $1,000s or something to make it through this year. And I wasn't able to get anything from Solomon at the time. And then Armada was looking around for a new kind of younger kid. They had reached out to my coach, Alana, Chris O'Connell did. And that's how I got hooked up with Armada. And they were willing to pay a little bit. And it was a no-brainer for me, especially being the sickest company ever.
Especially at that time, there's no cooler brand. I mean, Line's maybe comparable to some kids. Those two brands to me were the cool brands in skiing. I worked for K2, but I realized that we weren't on that level.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, they've always been, in most people's eyes, definitely one of the coolest brands. And, you know, as a kid, being a huge fan, it was a no-brainer for me. So before that trip, I signed with them. And then we went on there. And actually, that was our catalog shoot, which was insane. I was being invited to go after being this young kid being signed. And my first trip out of the country, I think, too. First time I'd ever skied anywhere outside of the States. And Samsung had like sponsored the shoot and given O'Connell and everybody a bunch of cameras to use and come up with a little like skit for the video and me being there and stuff. So that ended up being what the shoot was, and we portrayed it as I was trying out, and it was pretty funny. It was a really memorable trip. I was there with Hornbeck and Kim Boberg and Gus and Danya. Yeah, it was insane. I mean, I say it in the video, it was a trip of a lifetime, but it really was the trip of a lifetime.
No better trips since then?
I mean, I've had some great trips, but I think that's the one that holds the most memories. Just such an insane opportunity. I couldn't even believe they were inviting me, of all people, to go on their like catalog shoot. They had the sickest team in the world.
You're in high school at this time. Are you like a normal high school student, or is that all about to change with your travels?
That was right when I did start freshman year, because it was in August, September. So I had just started my first few weeks of freshman year. And things just got crazy from there. Like I was explaining with Grand Prix and Dew Tour, with those two results, I got my invite to X Games. And actually, right before I got my invite to X Games, I had gotten linked up with the team manager from Target through Chris O'Connell.
Troy?
Yeah, Troy.
He's the sponsor of the show, Rescue Water.
He's amazing.
Yeah.
Troy and I skied together in Aspen, just rode the park a bit and skied the mountain, had lunch. I didn't even know like what was going on. I just had been told by O'Connell that Troy, this guy from Target, wanted to ski together. I was like, oh yeah, of course. And to my surprise, they ended up signing me before I even got my invite to X Games. And it was nothing about my skills as a skier. I mean, I'm sure obviously that was a deciding factor. That's how you get sponsorships, but it was honestly a lot more about just me as a person was what I was told the entire time. And that's what they wanted me to know. They're like, hey, we're not just trying to sign you because you're just that next up and coming kid. But I mean, Troy is such an amazing person. And he saw it in me as a person that I was somebody that they wanted to sign. That right there saved my entire family. And then I got invited to X Games. And then I got second at X Games.
And that's like a dream come true. It's like having the Super Bowl in your hometown. And you've been going for 10 years, but now you're going as an invited athlete. You get second place, which has to be mind-blowing.
I mean, it's like nothing I had ever experienced in my life. I mean, you don't expect your lifelong dreams of competing in X Games, let alone getting a medal, coming true when you're just starting freshman year of high school. It was so much to comprehend and take in such a short period of time. I was on cloud nine. There's no words, really. I still just look back at that day and am so thankful for everybody that helped me get there. I remember we were getting my gloves like screen printed with the Target logo on them and my helmet painted. And I remember Troy was like tentative to give me the stuff before X Games because he didn't want to add any pressure of me riding in X Games with a fully branded helmet and stuff. He wanted me to just experience it with like not a ton of pressure. I was so hyped to just even like have that deal. There was no pressure being added. I was just insanely hyped. It's like, come on, give me the helmet. Like, I want to wear it. So I got it, and I couldn't even believe how the results came out that day. You know, it was so much going on, like I said, that it was a miracle, honestly.
What do you do after you win the X Games as a 15-year-old? What's the big night after it? Because you don't plan it beforehand because you probably don't even think you're going to make the finals, but you end up in second. And what do? You do your podium, you're shitting your pants, high-fiving your friends because all your friends live there. And then what do you do?
I had a girlfriend at the time and honestly just hung out with her that night, just chilled.
No more questions on that. We'll just assume it was a good night. You get second at the X Games. You're a marketable, likable kid that the sky's the limit for. I mean, brands like Target see the value in you just because of who you are and not the ability, although we've established that you have to have that first and foremost. But who's paying you right now? What are your big sponsors? And I think you've been with most of them for a while. So who are they?
Right now, I'm with Red Bull and Armada, Giro, Toyota, Dakine for accessories, gloves, and bags.
Is that new?
Yeah, I just signed with them this year. Be starting up their accessories team, which I'm so hyped on because I've always been such a huge fan. And Look Bindings and Aspen Snowmass. And then as far as this Olympic year goes, I'm with Comcast, Xfinity, and Smuckers as well as kind of Olympic endorsements.
Do you know the difference between jam and jelly?
I do, but I'm going to keep it PG.
Okay, fair enough. And in terms of Comcast, Xfinity, do you get free internet?
I do indeed. I get free TV and internet throughout the deal.
You should have negotiated it for much longer. Like, hey, this Olympic medal's really hard to get. I want 10 years of free internet along with everything else.
And the highest bandwidth, please.
Yeah, and you can never regulate me.
You got to take the opportunities where they're given.
For sure. And in terms of that, a skier at your level in an Olympic year, because it's going to be different in non-Olympic years, but can you make a couple $100,000 being a skier?
You know, financially, there's definitely years that fluctuate throughout your career. And
I'm thinking if your best year was an Olympic year, could you walk with a couple hundred?
Yeah, I mean, Olympic years, I'd say, are definitely some of the biggest ones. But yeah, I mean, I'd say that's definitely true.
I'm sure you have your $40,000 to $50,000 years too when they're not Olympic years or you're younger coming up. So it all evens out at the long run. But at your max, $250,000 would be almost the ceiling for a pro skier in halfpipe.
I'd personally say there's actually room for more. And I think it also depends on the years too, not in the sense of Olympic or not, but literally like the years in history. There was times in skiing where salary caps were just like ridiculous, you know, back in 05, 06, 07, where there was no standard, you know, nobody knew what you should pay these people doing tricks on skis. So the numbers were just insane, you know, and now there's definitely been like a standard set at a rate an endemic company will like look at and be like, hey, like this is what we pay most people. Like this is what we'll pay the up and comer. This is what we'll pay our like superstars. But I mean, I think there's room to make a ton of money. It just depends on how much you want to sell out, I guess is one big way to put it.
You got to sell before you sell out, though.
Yeah, I mean, trust me, I signed with Target when I was 15. I was far past sold out. But I mean, like I said, you really have to just take up on the opportunities where they're given. And I'm really thankful to, have had these opportunities to work with these big brands, but also work with the brands that I truly care a lot about in the sense of giving back to skiing and just kind of staying core within the roots of people that have been there the whole time, like Armada, for instance. I think it's really special that I've been able to have this relationship with them going on like 7 years now. I think they're one of the people that have just really been there in free skiing the whole time and have done so much for the sport with being started by free skiers and just everything. So I'd like to hopefully say that, throughout these times where I've definitely had big brands and I'm thankful for the opportunities financially that they've given me, I think it goes without saying I'm still just such a massive supporter of the people who've been there the whole time too.
And I saw recently, it looked like you were wearing K2 boots. Is that right?
Yeah, I've been in a pair of K2 boots for like 2.5 years now. They're super blown out and I need to get some new boots. Yeah, it was kind of random. I was riding these Nordica girls boots forever that just fit so well, but they were from like 2010. Then Nordica finally ran out of their stock and we're like, hey, like we have no more of these left. You ran through like 40 of them. It's like, damn, those are the best ever. So then Shell, who was the team manager at the time, had reached out and was like, hey, you want some boots? And I tried them out and they were great, but they're just super blown out now. And I'm just trying to figure out what I like.
Well, hopefully K2 hears this and sends you a pair of boots because you should be able to get one pretty easy. I am going to take a break really quick to talk about my last set of sponsors. And I'll start with the 10 Barrel Brewery. They brew beer, drink beer, and have fun doing it, period. They're located in Bend, Oregon, and they pride themselves on shredding POW during the winter and drinking beer outside as often as possible. The people behind the beer are what you would expect from Bend folk. Outdoors-minded people who believe in the products they make, love the place they live and play, and they've just released their seasonal Goggle Tan IRA. It's tasty to say the least. 10 Barrel is in the middle of their Goggle Tan tour that features live music, the mini pub, which I really need to have in my backyard, and a ton of giveaways. It all happens from 2 to 5 p.m., and the final stops of the tour are in Squaw Valley on February 9th and 10th, and Eldora on February 24th. 9 out of 10 people who have attended the tour so far say this is the best mountain beer experience in the history of beer. Check it out and tell them Powell sent you. My final sponsor is the Summit at Snoqualmie, which has been my go-to ski destination for the past 20 years. There's a lot of great skiing in Washington State, but the Summit should be the go-to choice for Seattle skiers and snowboarders. As far as mountains go, Alpental is the choice for the hardcore rider, while East, West, and Central have something for everyone. But really, the Summit is 45 minutes from Seattle, which makes powder weekday mornings a reality. You can shred the Summit and be back at your desk by noon. And on weekends, I still only spend an hour and a half in the car round trip, and I've never had to turn around because I couldn't find a parking spot. It's the only place in Washington that can boast that, and if you don't ski or snowboard, you have to check out the Tubing Hill. Anyone can do it, and it's ridiculously fun. While you're figuring out what to do this weekend, make the Summit at Snoqualmie part of your plans. Those are the people that make the show happen. Now we're going to get back into some more craziness, which is your life, and it's a full roller coaster. You seem like such a level-headed kid. Did your life feel like a roller coaster? Because we'll start talking about stuff that's up and down, or did it just feel normal with some weird turns?
Yeah, it felt like a roller coaster for sure. I mean, throughout the young years of my life, whatever instances were happening, there was always that thought of like, why me, why us, when you're repetitively struck with bad luck or however you'd like to put it. I mean, it's hard to not have that feeling of like wanting to just give up and just asking yourself or literally just speaking into thin air, why me, why this again, whether it's financially or with my dad or just anything. It sucks when you're just repetitively being brought down and feel like somebody's just trying to not let you succeed. But yeah, it was definitely a roller coaster once things did start to go well. So there'd be an amazing thing this week and then, something crazy the next week. I was actually just talking about this recently with somebody. that was asking me, if I felt more in my life like, why did all this bad luck happen? Or do I look at it in an appreciative way of being thankful for all the life lessons I've learned? And I mean, that's definitely how I've taken it. I'd like to think that throughout the trials and tribulations I've dealt with in the past years, that it's made me stronger as a person and made me had to mature at a really young age, way faster than I chose to.
You grew up fast.
I'm happy that it did happen because it's hopefully made me into a better person in the long run, I'd like to hope, or taught me life lessons that I'll use forever.
Normally, I would talk about some of the contests, but really, you don't want to be defined as a half-pipe skier. You're a skier, and half-pipe happens to be something you do, which gets your name out there. You've got 2 silvers, 2 bronzes, 3 golds, I think, at X Games or something like that. So you've done well. You've won the biggest event in the world, which is the X Games to you. The Olympics is obviously bigger, but I think to the skier who grows up with it, that's your Super Bowl. But in terms of where things start shifting for you, there's a situation with a dry needle. I don't know what a dry needle is. And it sounds like you were hurt and they were going to alleviate some pain with a dry needle. What does that mean? And take us through what I'm trying to describe.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard for many people to understand if you've never personally done much of that work. But before the last Olympics, the U.S. team had a camp going on to ride pipe, whatever usual ride half pipe, which I don't even do that often, but it's always good to get in there. And we rode one day. We had just gotten there, drove over from my house, and I'd had shoulder surgery the year before and just kind of dealt with a bunch of kind of muscle pain and just generally needing some work on it after skiing quite often. And our physical therapist the year before had stopped working for the team and went back to Montana State. So the U.S. team would hire temporary physical therapists just for each camp or contest.
Kind of like a rent-a-cops?
Yep, exactly. And, it totally works. It's still amazing. You have somebody to work with. And I went to get physical therapy, and the therapist that they had hired for this week was a guy from Breckenridge, and his specialty was dry needling, as opposed to acupuncture, which is a bunch of small needles in an area. Dry needling is one larger needle that they're just poking into pressure points to relieve muscle tension. And I'd had it done on the back of my shoulder, and I didn't know a lot about the practice, but everybody else on the team had already had work done and was happy with how they were feeling, from Jen Hudak to Simon and, Aaron and everybody else. And I did some and, went back to my condo that night. And I've had asthma for as long as I can remember. So being a little short of breath is nothing uncommon for me. And I was really short of breath that night. And I used the inhaler and all that. And I woke up and I was still just so short of breath. And we actually had a private hour to ride the pipe at Copper that the U.S. team rented out. So we went up early in the morning and I took one run and I just was gasping for air at the end of it. So I went down to the clinic and they x-rayed me and they're like, yeah, you have a collapsed lung. So then I went to the hospital in Breck and they put me under and put a tube into my lung. And that was all because of the physical therapy. The guy just went too deep and punctured my lung with the needle, which was the craziest thing ever.
Who's responsible for medical bills for this? First of all, is that the U.S. team that takes care of it?
Well, the U.S. team gives me insurance. So I guess in the long run, yeah, they do cover it besides my copay. It was just honestly a fluke accident. And I didn't really know much about it at the time, but it is a dangerous practice and not everywhere is it legal to do for whatever reason. If you're doing it on your quad or something, it's, completely harmless. But obviously in an area with a lot of vital organs and lungs and everything underneath, it's always a gamble. And I honestly didn't know much about the practice at the time. But I mean, it happened. And then I was in the hospital in the ICU for a week and a half and got my lung all inflated and back feeling good. And then I chilled on the couch for a week. And then they were like, yeah, you're good to ski. And I was like, all right, well, our first Olympic qualifier is this week in Breck. Am I fine to do that? And they're like, yeah, you're good. Just know you're prone to collapse your lung again, being as you just went through a pretty traumatic experience. So I did do tour and I had only ridden like one day a pipe and did practice, did qualies, and I qualified first to my surprise, which was, out of nowhere. Super hyped on that.
Well, you really don't ski pipe unless you're competing, it sounds like.
Yeah, no, almost little to never. Regardless, I mean, I had just barely even skied that year much since it was so early in the season. And then hung out for a couple days and then went to finals on Friday night and was riding practice and everything was going well. And then I took my last couple runs before the event started. And I just fell super hard head over heels on an alley-oop double and broke my first and second rib, which is almost unheard of because your first rib is under your collarbone.
Oh, man.
And then from the ribs cracking, that re-punctured that right lung. And then I was in ICU full-blown again, lung tube and everything for another 2 weeks at that point. And then was using all these breathing devices for the next month and just sitting on the couch and missed every Olympic qualifier. But yeah, thankfully got that fourth discretion spot. They had faith from my previous years.
Yeah, your previous years. And I think anybody that hasn't heard of you or know anything about you, there's an amazing documentary that came out just the other day, Back to Life. Clayton Vila, who's an amazing skier and an amazing filmmaker, put together a story, 40 minutes on your life that goes through a lot of what we're talking about, and just some of the pictures and video. You'll see how talented Torin is on skis, but also just the severity of some of these hospital experiences that we're going to talk about. Because this one, he gets out, he gets the bid to go to the Olympics, and the Olympics experience, you do okay. Do you make finals?
No, I actually didn't make finals at the Olympics, which was the second event I had not made finals in since the whole professional career started.
Well, that's the wrong one to not make finals for.
Yeah, not the best, but yeah, luckily I can look back and know that I was not quite fit.
And that's not the most important thing at the time, because right about when you're either getting picked for the Olympics or maybe before that, your mom's diagnosed with cancer, and your mom's your rock who enabled you to do all these things that you've done in your life. And are you even thinking about skiing, or is focus more on your mom?
Yeah, it was a complicated time. My mom had gotten diagnosed with cancer in the fall, and it was really bad. And throughout all of this, with me going in the hospital, she was in the hospital too, in and out.
Were you guys in the same hospital together? Could you have lunch together?
No, I was in Breckenridge and she was in Denver. But yeah, it was just it was a hard time. You're thinking about, it was really hard because my grandma died from colon cancer in 2013.
Okay.
So when you're thinking about your mom having the same kind of cancer, you can't help from immediately just think, what would happen if she was gone, she's literally the person that helps me get through everything in life at the time. So yeah, it was horrible, but yeah, she went through 2 pretty extensive surgeries and was able to make a full recovery without chemotherapy. And that was an amazing thing within itself. While this whole Olympic dream type of deal was going on, and I was dealing with ups and downs of injuries and going to this event and then doing really bad and all this, I had this whole nother scenario going on in my life that, was a success in its own, just knowing that my mom was going to be okay.
It's just so heavy because you're 17, 18 at this point?
Yeah, I was 17, turning 18. I don't think any kid, I'd say I was decently organized on my own and, a self-supporting individual, but I'd still not know what the hell to do without my mom helping me out.
And how are you mentally and emotionally? Are you crying all the time and upset? Or are you still just the same kid? Because it's a lot of shit to deal with.
Yeah, I don't even know. I was always, throughout all of it as a kid, your mom asked me if I want to do therapy and all that stuff, with my dad and everything. And I always said no. I never wanted anybody else to have to help me. I wanted to be able to deal with it on my own. So by that point in my life, I was just you know what? Whatever's on my plate right now, I got to just deal with this. And I don't know, I've always been a pretty closed person and just trying to not let things bring me down. And there's times when you're just laying there in bed at night as a kid and you're looking up at the ceiling, just what the hell, all mad or frustrated or however you'd want to express your feelings. But you just got to power through. And that was kind of all I was really thinking about. It sucked, but I mean, I was just trying to do everything I could for my mom and at the same time trying to ski my best. And I mean, things were just always complicated.
Yeah.
It was always way more than just like skiing on my plate. And that's like a big thing we were trying to portray in the documentary, you know, like people kind of dehumanize professional skiers in the sense of thinking if you're at the top and you're winning all this stuff, it just looks like you're living the perfect lifestyle. And yeah, I mean, that's what the movie wanted to give people a look in, just what happens in the real life of an athlete. You know, they're still a human too and have everything going on at home, or however you may want to put it.
Through doing these podcasts and talking to a ton of different people, there's some people that had it easy for sure, but most people haven't. I'm just surprised that not everybody came from money, especially the successful ones. I mean, sure, 70% of people did because it's skiing, but there's people like yourself who just on paper shouldn't have been a professional skier, but was able to make that happen, which is pretty amazing. I'm not going to get your take on any of the ceremonies or anything like that, but is there anything that stands out about the Olympic experience? Did you get that early powder day that everybody was talking about?
I didn't get the real early POW day because we went later than the slopestyle team, so they got the best of it. But I got some days skiing there that were so insanely fun. And not only during the Olympics, but the test event the year before in Sochi, it also snowed a ton. And the resort is insane, like European style in the aspect of not having any boundaries or like signs on huge aspects with pretty aggressive terrain, which always makes it fun. You can go ski whatever with lift access, and so yeah, we had a really good time. And I mean, the best part about it to me was just like sharing such an opportunity that not many people in this world get to see with like a couple of my best friends. I was with Lyman and Blanc, and been skiing with Dave for a while, and being able to like be in this it was just something so much bigger than anything I've ever been to. Not in the sense of the contest necessarily, but more just, the general idea of the Olympics. There's so many people watching, and I don't know, it's such a big deal to like everybody in the sense of just like a battle of the countries. So much history in it. I don't even know. It was just badass, honestly.
Did it make you proud to be an American?
Yeah, for sure. Never been like a diehard patriot kind of person, but like walking in the opening ceremonies wearing your colors countries was definitely really special. I mean, it just makes you think how lucky you are when you're walking out there with everybody. They're on TV and everybody's watching, and they're all cheering you on to represent the country they're from. It's, like I said, just something so much bigger than representing yourself in all these contests we go to. So that was probably the coolest part for sure. And I was 18, Blanc was 17, and Lyman was like 19. And we were just like roaming around Russia all recklessly. It was so fun.
Is there a drinking age in Russia?
I think it's 18. I'm not too sure.
Do you party at all?
Yeah. I had my fun as a kid.
You have a few beers after skiing and do what everybody's doing?
Yeah. I mean, I'm always definitely, when I got less hungover, had a lot more fun doing it. But now I'm always like, oh, God, I don't want to feel like shit tomorrow.
Dude, Troy. One rescue water at the end of your night, and I guarantee, you're young anyway. I drink them and I don't feel hungover anymore. And that was my biggest problem with drinking, was being hungover. And now that I've started drinking rescue water, I've started drinking a little bit more. Also, I have a beer sponsor that helps too.
Yeah, perfect. You got all the aspects covered.
One other sponsor I might get that would dial everything in and make it perfect, but I'm not going to talk about that. But I think when we move through your career, because I'm going to skip another year because we got another big story to talk about. The Olympics end, you come home, there's probably a whole bunch of hoopla. You're probably not involved in a ton of it because you didn't make the finals. That sucks, but whatever. When 2015 hits in November, you get a case of the strep throat. Not that big of a deal to most people, but in your world, the roller coaster of your life, this strep throat becomes something that's more serious than any other person's strep throat ever, almost. I mean, are you just feeling sick one day and you call your mom and you're like, Mom, I feel sick. I need to get to the doctor?
With the entire scenario in the fall of 2015, I was home at my house here in Basalt.
Do you own a house? Sorry.
Yeah, I own a house.
Awesome.
And I went up to Snowmass. This was before the resort was open. We always go to this little area in the bottom of the park where they store all of the rails and stuff in the summer. And when we get a little storm early season, we'll always go up there and go build some features, set up some rails, a little early season setup. And I went up there with a couple of my friends and who lived with me at my house. And we were riding, we were having fun, just hiking the rails all day. Just started to feel pretty sick at the end of the day, like a cold. And we drove home, and I was just getting worse and worse throughout the night, like most sick I'd ever been in my entire life. Like in excruciating pain. The body aches were so bad, and the most insane chills I've ever experienced. I can't even explain how bad it was, but I woke up the next day and I really needed to get to Utah because I had just gotten those K2 boots and I need to get them fit by this guy in Salt Lake.
So you go 6 hours to fit your boots?
Yeah, so my girlfriend also lives out there too, so I was going to see her.
Okay.
But while really sick, I drove to Utah, which was horrible. And I got there and like I was just doing so bad that I immediately went to just the walk-in clinic and did every test under the sun. And they were like, yeah, we don't know. Like, seems like you have just a flu-like virus. Here's some Tamiflu. Like, you'll feel better within a few days. And kind of throughout the next few days, things were just getting worse and worse. I went to another doctor. They basically said the same thing. I went to the ER because my temperature was at like 104.
Jesus.
And they basically said the same thing. They didn't know what was going on. Told me to just take a ton of Advil for the body aches and keep taking the Tamiflu. And then my girlfriend went to the East Coast, and I was staying at a place. Actually, I was renting there at the time. I didn't have my house here yet. I lived at Sage Kotzenberg's house. I did have my house here, but he was cool with me still staying out there sometimes. And in the middle of the night, I was like in so much pain in my right side and just can't even explain how sick I was. So I called my agent who lives like down the street from where I was at.
Of course that's what you do when you feel like you're going to die. You call your agent.
Yeah, well, yeah, he had brought me some soup earlier that day. And he's like, yeah, call me if you need anything. And he lives so close. So I called him because Sarah, my girlfriend, was gone. And he came and picked me up and brought me to the ER again. And then they like took me pretty serious that time. And I like couldn't breathe at all. It was insane. Like I was just gasping for air and so much pain in my side. And then they flew me to the University of Utah Hospital in Salt Lake. And I was like fighting them because I was like, just have a saving money mindset. I was like, no,
Right.
we can just drive. Like, it's all good. They're like, no, like we have to fly you. Just thinking helicopters are expensive.
Right.
They fly me down. And then my agent, Michael, had to leave. So my girlfriend's mom came to the hospital and she's like sitting there holding my hand while I just absolutely cannot breathe, feeling like I'm going to die. And then I basically woke up like 10 days later. And they had like done a bunch of scans and found that I had an infection, bacterial infection in the family of strep called Streptococcus aeruginosus, which is extremely rare, especially in a person my age with my health. And it had taken over like my vital organs. It infected my liver and caused a massive abscess within my liver. Infected my gallbladder, which was just inflating, and everything was just shutting down in my body. I had a ton of fluid in my lungs. My like O2 levels were just insanely low, and they put me on a ventilator and full life support and sedated me and had me in a paralytic state, medically induced paralysis. And I just sat there like a dead carcass with like a million things attached to me. And there was times when I was under that state that my levels were so low that they told my family to call everybody because they thought I was going to die 100%.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it was heavy. And my girlfriend was there pretty much throughout the whole time. And like you could imagine for her thinking, your boyfriend's just sitting there and you'll never talk to him again. Pretty heavy. But then, yeah, I mean, I woke up and it was extensive. It was 3 months of just in and out of the hospital. Everything attached to me still, even when I went home.
You've got your PICC line, and then you've got tubes coming out of the side of your body as well.
Yeah, tubes coming out of my liver, draining the abscess, tube coming out of my gallbladder, which was like constantly feeding the fluid that goes through your gallbladder into your intestines to break fat down, essentially bypassing it. Instead of going into my gallbladder, it was going out of my body into this little bag. It was disgusting. And I had those attached to me for like 2 months in the PICC line with penicillin running 24/7 for a month, and was just like trying to go to the gym to put my weight back on. And then inevitably I actually started skiing in late January.
With a tube coming out of you?
Yeah, with both tubes coming out of me, trying to ski halfpipe and stuff. And
Really?
finally had them all taken out and whatnot. It was a gamble on the gallbladder one because they thought my gallbladder wasn't going to work and I was going to get reinfected. They wanted me to get my gallbladder taken out. But I was like, I don't want to miss this whole season. I'll take the risk. Just take the tube out. And thankfully, my gallbladder did work and is still so far working pretty well.
Because that's one of those things that they can just cut it out. It's probably 5 months of recovery, but they can cut that out and you're good.
A lot of people live without their gallbladder. It's not a vital organ.
You risked it. You were like, you know what? This is my time. Do you think, like, all these things have gone wrong, this one's going to go right?
Yeah, I was like talking with my mom and we were just like, you know what? Through all the bad luck, let's just take the chance. It's got to go right this time. And thankfully it did. And then I rode at X Games after only riding for like a week. Kind of seems like the status quo these days for me.
Yeah.
And I got 5th in Aspen at X Games there, and it was just insane that I was even able to ski, so I was hyped. But then again, I'm still like a competitor, so you're always trying to win. So I should have been super thankful to be in 5th, but you know, you always want to be like, I wish I could have gotten up there in the top 3. But I mean, still, again, I was just so thankful to be alive at the time. And then I went to Oslo later that year and ended up winning there, which was, yeah, the most memorable event wins of my entire life, just being as what I dealt with before.
Is that the first event that your dad's at?
The first event my dad was at was X Games.
Okay.
He like got released in December and all of that started in November.
Wait, did he get released before or after it?
Kind of like partially through, halfway through he got released.
So your dad's getting out of jail to go see you in a comatose state in the hospital?
I was already out of the comatose state, and then I was still in Utah, and then he had finally gotten home. And then once I was doing a little better, I actually drove home from Utah and spent Christmas at home with my family. And that was like the first time I really got to see him in a long time. And that was, yeah, it was really special. It was amazing.
Is your dad a skier too?
Yeah, my dad is a diehard skier. Honestly, more so than I am.
In looking at your whole career from start to finish, nothing was easy. Actually, nothing was easy. Everything was hard. You had the chips stacked up against you at every different level, and it doesn't seem like you ever really thought about it that much. You just said, fuck it, I'm going to move forward, and what happens, happens. You're not super outspoken, I would say. I mean, I'm sure you are with your friends, but you're just like a dude who happens to be really good in the halfpipe and a really good skier all over the place.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, for me, it was always, that I kept all that stuff in the background. In a big way, it was like motivation too, you know? I was like pissed off that all this stuff was happening. So I wanted to like use that anger and just ski the best I could and just prove myself and be something worthy and not having all this stuff happen to me, you know? And it was always going on in the background, but I never let it run my life, you know? You can't let all those things just bring you down. I still had everything I wanted to do was on my mind, and all that stuff was, kind of hindering my success in a way. I didn't think about that at the time, but like if you looked at it, you'd think like everything was kind of trying to make me not become a professional in whatever I was trying to do. I've always tried to keep it calm and cool. I'm never proud of having to deal with that stuff. Like it sucked, and I'm really happy that it's made me stronger as a person. But yeah, that stuff I always kind of just pushed to the side. I had other goals on my mind. I had things I wanted to do, and I've always kind of just tried to appreciate everything and never take it for granted and try and be humble throughout it all.
Now, you qualified in the hardest way possible for the Olympics. It looked like it was going to be the easiest because you had a first coming into this year, but you waited till your last run to secure your spot. But now it looks like everything is calm in your world. I mean, you've got your Olympic spot. It's clean. Your foot is going to be fucked regardless, so you can't really think about that. That's just part of something you deal with. There's no real drama in your life right now, right? You're going into the Olympics with your clean bid, and you don't have anything to worry about but doing well.
Yeah. I mean, I think it lingers in the back of my head for sure, just the pure sense of wanting to ski better than I did last time. You can't help it, at least wanting to make finals and ski the best I can. Yeah, I mean, I'm extremely thankful to be in the position I'm in right now and have a lot of stress off of my shoulders and know that my family's safe and doing all right and things are all right at the time. But in the same kind of regard, when you go through all these difficulties in your life, I kind of have a guard up. If I think that everything's okay, which I have in the past at times, then things go so wrong and you can't just think everything's always perfect, because if something does go wrong, it's going to bring you even more down. So as much as I'm hyped right now that everything's great, in my mind, I never try and think everything's perfect. I mean, that's just how it is. I never want to jinx myself. The best way to put it is in the movie Blow with Johnny Depp.
Yep.
In the storyline of it, every time he says everything was perfect, something always goes wrong. And that's how I kind of think of my life. I never want to say everything's perfect. I want to just enjoy where I'm at. But, you always got to be ready for the next thing to happen.
I hope everything continues to be pretty even for you. I will not call anything perfect, but your story and your career, man, it's been a roller coaster, but it always ends on a high, which is what you're looking for. And it's been a pleasure to watch you go bigger than a lot of people, get less hits than a lot of people because you're traveling a lot further in the pipe. And it's been awesome to watch since you were 14 years old, man. So I thank you for your time and look forward to see what you do in South Korea.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. I'm hyped I got to sit down and chat. I've been a big fan of all the podcasts coming out recently. I've liked them a lot.
Thanks, man. And we will have to catch up again at Hood because I'll probably see you there next summer at some point and shoot the shit there.
Oh, yeah. Sounds good, man. Well, thanks for your time tonight. I'm glad we finally made it happen.
So that was time with Torin Yater-Wallace, and what an intense life that kid has lived already. The situations that he has experienced would break most people, but Torin looked at it as fuel to achieve his dreams. Now that most of the drama is behind him, Torin looks forward to a pain-killing injection in his foot and a big showing at the Olympics that could make him a household name. Next week on the show, it's Britta Sigourney. Britta's an athlete that I signed back in my days at K2, and now she's a veteran in the world of women's halfpipe. She's having the best season that she's had in years and is ready to stand on the podium in South Korea. But that's next week. For now, I ask you to review me on whatever platform you listen to me on, share my posts, and tell your friends about the show. I also need to thank my sponsors. They are Evo, Rescue Water, 10 Barrel Brewery, and the Summit at Snoqualmie. Thanks for listening and have a great week.